in real estate, they say, you make your money on the buy. You have to buy real estate correctly, right? And the best way to buy real estate is through a motivated seller, right? Because when you're dealing with a motivated seller, they, chances are they're going to be more open to giving you a really good deal, right? And so we want to buy. So the vision is to buy a distressed property from a motivated seller, and then we fix it up. And then once we fix it up, we have that instant equity, right? And by the way, so we got to buy it. And because it's a distressed property, we're going to have to buy it with cash, right? When I say cash, like, like a hard money loan, or, what I'm saying? Or like just raising money from our network, right? Pooling money together, raising money from our network, buying it in cash. All right. And then fixing it up. And then once it's fixed up, we can then get a traditional mortgage on it. And at that point, we will have equity in the property, which is really cool to have that, equity. And then, we start renting it out. And so let's start back to the whole, I guess the first step is finding the deal, right? And so it's just kind of like keeping your eyes open. I told you about this property in Maryland that's a potential situation where it's like a motivated seller. And, when I go through that process, I'm just thinking about like, what are the questions I need to ask even before I bring a contractor out to the property to inspect? Because I don't want to waste anyone's time, right? I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste my contractor's time. I don't want to waste the motivated seller's time. So I'm thinking, when I'm having that initial conversation with the motivated seller, what are the key questions I need to ask?
Okay. Key questions with someone. Well, I think first we have to realize, are they going to disclose everything? And we hope that they will, but if it is visibly distressed, then that's always a risk factor that you want to keep in mind, that even if they tell you all of this stuff, that they probably don't know until you start taking walls down and boards down. So I think just to keep in mind to always have a buffer in your budget.
Okay.
From the start.
Always have
and you'll see that in any shows that you watch, all of a sudden they're like, okay, hey, we came across bad wiring, so just things that you don't know until you start getting down to it.
And at that point, I guess I would word that as, always have a buffer in your rehab budget, I guess you could say, right? Okay. All right, very good. Yeah, good point.
And so we can ask them, have they had any flooding issues, any pipe issues?
All right, so I'll say something like, just
leaks, like just long-term leaks.
Yes. Okay. All right. So basically, we're talking about, the details of the property, which of course we will need to verify, but at least we'll have a baseline.
Right. And I think, and you're going to be able to verify that with contractor, but, just asking them the state of the property and their opinion, also finding out, talking to them about their needs for selling, because you might need that information later as you're negotiating, just to remind them of what their goals are, because, that can be, they can want to backtrack a little bit and start rethinking it, or what if I can get more money, or what if I fix it up myself? So I think that you need to kind of gather that information in the beginning, as far as what their needs are and what their motivations are for selling.
Right. Yes. so basically it's kind of like we want, and then like I'm very like have strong values, you have strong values, and so we never want to be deceiving or anything, right? You know what I'm saying? Because we want to operate with like full, integrity. And so yeah, I think, I guess I could word this by saying, we want to find out, why are they willing to sell at a discount? Because I'm thinking, I should be totally upfront and say, look, you know, I my network can buy your property with cash, right? And it would be a very fast closing, right? And we will buy it as is, right? So I guess I should explain to them the benefits of what I'm bringing to the table, and kind of explain to them that in exchange for these benefits of buying it in cash and a very fast closing and buying it as is, and like you're not going to have any, like the process is going to be very quick and easy.
Right.
I should explain to them that that the trade-off is that you're going to have to sell it at a discount. If you want to sell it at retail, then that's a whole different conversation. That's a conversation where I can refer you to a realtor that will come in and put it on the market, and you got to go through all that hassle, but I guess that's what it comes down to, is like, okay, then if they want to go the route of considering having me buy the property, I need to ask them, why are they willing to sell at a discount? Right? Okay.
Well, and I would take out the word discount because it's just a sale. I mean, a sale's a sale. And if you say the word discount, then that puts it in their head that they're losing money. And they're not, because they're gaining a sale. And so I think another question to ask that you can follow up is, what did you pay for the home? And that way they're seeing that, okay, I am making a profit.
Okay, so tell me this. Yeah, no, that's a good point, because at that level of as is, then yeah, it's not a discount. But I guess I want to make it clear to them that if they were to work with a realtor, if they were to fix it up and put it on the market, they could get more. But so, okay, so instead of saying at a discount, would you say this? Why are they willing to sell it at wholesale in a way rather than retail? Or not?
No, I wouldn't say any of that, because they're selling it at what the value it is right now.
That's true. Which, okay.
So the words that you're using would be if they fixed it up, but you're buying it at market value right now in the state that it's in. So back to the benefits to them, they don't have to get a loan for $20,000 to fix it up. They don't have to rely on contractors. They don't have to deal with 6% for real estate fees and closing fees. And so going back to what's the benefit is their time, that this can be a quick transaction. You don't have to worry about fixing anything that's going on with the house, that's our job after. And, back to just getting the information for what was their original mortgage and what's included in the sale. So in other words, you want to kind of know what's on their property. Besides, maybe they've got a workshop or something that's included. And if it's been on the market, how long was it on the market? And just kind of find out what happened for the last year or so, if it's been on the market. And any hazards or nuances, like, are they dealing with traffic congestion? Is there a train nearby that you didn't realize? Just, is there asbestos or lead-based paint? Knowing the age of the home can kind of tell you if those are the things. The age of the roof is probably good to know. If they've done any major repairs or renovations. And you know, also you want to find out, what did they really love about their home, and what did they love about the neighborhood and the community. And that can kind of help you later on when you're listing the home, adding some benefits in.
Yes, I like that. I like that. Now going back to how to word this thing about, why are they willing to sell it? Okay, so how about this? What if I word it as, why are they willing to sell it as is instead of fixing it up and selling it on the market?
Well, I think that you might just be able to ask them why they are wanting to move. And that way it is finding out again what their motivation is will come. I think that question would be answered in, hey, my husband got a job across town and now the commute's too long. Or, it's
I see.
so, I mean, I think just, I don't know how you would ask that without it making them think that they're being taken advantage of.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
so I think just, why are you selling your house? Why are you thinking about moving? And just listen. And I think a lot of what we need to do in the beginning with any business transaction is listen. So they will answer more questions than you even ask, when you just let them talk and find out what their needs are. Um, because we don't want to insult them, like, your house is in bad shape and, we're going to buy it and you don't have to fix it. It's just, what is it about you that you want to sell your home?
True.
And it's up to us to get the numbers, and it's up to us to get the cost benefit. They don't know those numbers a lot of times. They know that they're seeing a lot of action in the neighborhood, lots of people are selling, so they've been thinking about it, but they usually know their property's not up to par.
Okay.
And I think just talking about the value of their time cost savings and being able to do an easy transaction. And I think for a
Right.
lot of people, moving and putting your home on the market is a huge stress because there's so many details. And this is eliminating a lot of those details.
Right. Oh, I love that. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So once we kind of have that initial conversation with them, right? Initial phone conversation where we're just kind of talking. And then if it comes out that, okay, if we feel as though this motivated seller is serious, right, about
Mhm.
selling and everything, then we move to the next stage, right, where we'll bring out a contractor to come with us to see the property, and the contractor can kind of go through and kind of inspect, right? Um, so now that's a big thing. I mean, like a friend of mine was telling me that you got to make sure that you get a really great inspector, to inspect. What advice would you have? I guess it kind of goes back to the whole thing about like trying to find a good tax account, right? You kind of just have to talk to your network to find a good inspector. Yeah.
I think that's piece of it. So for us, since we've been building homes for so long, um, my husband can be the inspector. So we don't have to lean on that. But if you do have to lean on a contractor, for one, we have friends that are inspectors, so we refer them to other people when they want an official report. And again, I think it would just be interviewing a few people. I always do the rules of threes.
Mhm,
Find three people that are inspectors and just
mhm.
feel it out and go with your gut on which one you should go with. If you've got people that know great inspectors, some of them are more expensive. So again, find out their pricing and do your pros and cons on who you're going to work with. There are some contractors that are good enough to do it for you, but you've got to kind of ease your way into that. It might be worth paying an inspector for those first few times.
Mhm.
Um, Walk it with your contractor, see what they say, then pay for the inspection. And then you're kind of getting a feel for how much does my contractor really know.
Yes. Okay. So tell me this, what type of confidence, or what is the word, security do we have? Like, for example, if we pay an inspector, and by the way, I know there's different
Mhm.
markets, it will be different, but
Sure.
what's a range in which you would say to hire an inspector to inspect a property? What
What
would
do
you,
you mean, what's a range? You
like
mean the
a
money
range
cost?
in the cost? Yeah.
Okay. They're 400 to 1,000.
400 to 1,000. Okay,
Yeah.
so we make this investment, right, to
Mhm.
have to hire an inspector to inspect the house. What type, do you know of what type of like warranty comes with that? Because I'm just thinking, like, what if we get it inspected and then there's something that the inspector missed and it ends up costing us money, you know?
I don't think there's a warranty with the inspector.
Okay.
And I think just with distressed properties, back to our first point on having a buffer, there's just things that you can't predict sometimes that are going to be deep down. A joist is, or, something that's holding up the property needs to be replaced. And nobody predicted that until all the boards came up.
Okay.
But it doesn't always happen. I think it's just risk management's a part of any business. And if you go in understanding already that, hey, 10% of people might not like my product and I'm going to need to do refunds, or, I mean, that's any business. And so just if you're thinking about risk management ahead of time, it's not going to be as upsetting, but it's still going to be upsetting because, everybody wants everything to go perfect. But if you go in with a mindset of, I have an extra $10,000 because I have no idea what I'm going to come up against. And, always keep that. It doesn't have to be 10,000. It can be whatever, but
Right.
always keep that. Don't spend it in the end. Like, move that buffer to the next house if it doesn't happen. And that way it's like your emergency savings for your business.
Right, right. Okay, that's a good point. I'm just thinking about, what type of recourse. But I guess it goes back to getting a really qualified inspector, right? If you get someone that has a track record, and you really vet them well, then you can kind of put your confidence in them. And I'm sure they would stand by their work to a certain extent. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah,
Right. Well, and I mean, they find a lot, and they find some things that are totally unnecessary because they
right,
want to make their money worth it. But
right.
um,
I see. I see.
but yeah, they if there is a lead problem, they're probably going to find it. If there's an asbestos problem, they do check the wiring. But again, just sometimes they don't find everything when you get down to the bones of a house.
Right, right. Okay. So
Mhm.
we get the inspector. Now, do the inspectors, when you hire an inspector, do they, and I know that, because of your situation with your husband, right? You haven't really
Mhm.
been dealing with hiring inspectors, but do you know if what type of process they go through? Like, do they usually give the client like an inspector report, like an
Oh yeah.
organized report of their
Mhm.
findings? Okay. How does that?
Pages and pages, and it'll have pictures and written details.
Oh, good, good, good,
Yeah,
good. Okay.
so it's very well. And again, that's where you're interviewing your inspectors. That's what we expect from ours. So
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, would you say that there's some inspectors that are inspectors and they also are contractors, and so you can actually hire them to do the work, or it might not even
oh
be
no.
appropriate to do that anyway, right? Right.
I don't know. I don't know
Okay.
because it's such a busy business that usually when they're inspectors, they're busy.
Okay, yeah, gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Okay, gotcha. And plus, it'd probably be more appropriate to separate those two things anyway. It might be. I feel like it could be like a conflict of interest in a way.
I was about to say maybe they would cover their tracks or something, but I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to a contractor that gave me a huge report, I mean, that's
True,
so
true.
maybe if you flip it and say my contractor
Right,
is
right,
giving me an inspector report instead of my inspector is my contractor.
right. True, true. I loved your comment about the rule of three. You called it the rule of threes.
Right.
Pretty much, you always, I guess, I feel the same way, right? Like
Mhm.
I assume what you mean is that whenever you're making a big purchase, you always
Mhm.
want to get at least 3 different quotes and compare
Mhm.
them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
And that's, I mean, you can use that in lots of life decisions.
Right. Exactly. So that's awesome. All right. So we get the inspection report and everything. And I guess with the inspection report, okay, so we have the inspection. So that's going to give us a good sense of our budget in terms of the rehab cost and everything. And remember, we have to add the buffer in there. But then I guess the other piece to it is trying to figure out the after repair value. So that's where we need to run the comps, I guess, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, the comps of the areas should be kind of your measuring point from the start.
Mhm.
And a 70% rule is what a lot of
Yes.
distressed property investors look for, is staying within that 70% of purchase. And then they're usually not having to invest the 30%, but somewhere within that 30% range comes their investment and then their earnings.
Right. So okay. I see. I see. Because okay, because yeah, I was gonna ask you about that, about the
Mhm.
70% rule. So the 30% would be the profit. Or is it, do you think some people would even try to make it where the 70% rule, meaning 70% is the purchase price plus the rehab, and so then 30% is our profit? Or is it 70%
Um,
just the purchase price? Okay.
yeah, so I think it just depends again on the deal that you're getting,
I see.
but you not wanting to go above that, because then your risk is getting finer and finer of trying to meet exact budgets.
I see. Yeah.
Um, but if you've got comps and you're running and there are $300,000 homes in the area, neighbors are 300,000, then that 30% rule would say that you can pick up that property for 210,000. And that sounds pretty realistic if you're thinking about it. Is somebody really going to sell a $300,000 home for 100,000? Probably not. But in a distressed place, they would probably move it for 210 because maybe they only paid 125 years ago or 160. They're still making a profit, but
I
they don't have to deal with all of it.
right.
And so what you're looking at is, okay, I've got this $90,000 window. I can fix this up for 20,000, and you're got a buffer within that. So then your profit is that remaining piece.
Yes. Okay. That makes sense.
But
Yeah.
when you put real numbers on it, it kind of sounds a lot more realistic on that's true. Now, are you going to come across that unicorn property for 100,000? Sometimes,
Right.
maybe,
Right.
but but that 70% kind of makes a little bit more sense when you put it onto the dollars of what a house might actually sell for.
Right. Good point. Good point.
Mhm.
Awesome. Going back to the conversation, I guess we also need to know about the liens that are on. Yeah, what's the current mortgage, and also is there a
Mhm.
second lien? So maybe that's
And sometimes they'll know, and you'll need to do a title search just to make sure there aren't additional liens.
okay. Yeah. All right. That's good. All right. So then we do our analysis, and then basically, so we get our inspection report, we kind of budget out our rehab budget, we add our buffer, we run the comps, we figure out what the after repair value will be. So we do our numbers, then we come up with a number, I guess a maximum number that we're comfortable with, right? Buying it for. And then then I guess we circle back to the motivated seller, and we try to make a deal. Try to make a deal.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, if
Mhm.
we if we get them to agree to a deal, if we're able to work out a deal, what would be the next step after that? I guess like a purchase contract or whatever, you know?
Hmm. Yes, I'd have to look up what the name of it is, but they have wholesale contracts that you can, that are completely legal and sell the home.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. So then yeah, we put it on the contract and
Hmm.
yeah, then we'll be good. And then so then when we um and then at that stage, then we need to really select our contracting team, right? Our contractor.
Hmm.
So I guess in a way, I can imagine that we can go about it where we hire a general manager, and the general manager has the power to hire all these
Right.
subcontractors,
Hmm.
or we could try to piece it together. But I guess if we don't really have experience, we shouldn't be trying to put people together that we're not even sure they're going to work well together. But I can imagine that like there's so many different aspects of it. So, well, what advice would you have in terms of
Hmm.
that, going through the process of hiring your team and
Sure.
managing them?
I would say find yourself a great general contractor. And again, interview, get referrals, interview past jobs. Um, like that way, you're really going in knowing the scope of their capabilities, how happy people were with their projects, and their professionalism. Um, and they are going to be the ones that are responsible for the rest of the contractors. It can get really exhausting, because you could have 10 different trades that are needed, and to find 10 different trades is a lot of work,
Right,
and to find good ones. So you can kind of lean on that person, and again, that's part of that, as you move along, if you want to change things up, but just put that into your costs. Like, stress management is important in this, and your timeline, because if you try to do it yourself, it will extend your timeline extensively,
right,
because they may not show up because you're just one job compared to the builder that they work for that has 10 jobs for them.
right,
um, and maybe not even knowing the order that the things need to be done in can mess things up and extend your timeline. So back to it's better just to pay a little bit extra for that GC,
right,
because yes, we know that he's going to make money off the subcontractors, but that's okay. That's his job. And it's not, you don't have to do that part.
right. That's a good point. So now here's the question then. Okay, so after we have, interviewed different GCs and we've done the vetting process and we finally select a particular GC that we want to move forward with, um, what, how, or like what advice would you have regarding us managing the GC? Like I've heard
Mhm.
situations where people will require the GC to give them a timeline and different things, or give them or have or like should we require the GC to really budget out everything, and then on a weekly basis we're kind of comparing the actual expenses with their budgeted expenses? Like, what are some tips that you have for that?
Sure. Great question. Yes to all of it. They need to give you
Yeah.
detailed estimates,
Ah,
because that's what's going to make them a good contractors. They should already know what their plumbers charge. They should already know what their electrician costs are. So they should be able to give you estimates. Um, Estimates, though, are estimates. And I think one of the things to keep in mind is when you start changing up materials, that really raises your budget. Um, One of the sayings my husband always says, and I love it, you can take a 2,000 square foot home and build it for $200,000, but you can also have a 2,000 square foot home and build it for $1 million. It is the materials on the inside that make a difference.
wow, I see. Because the labor, you would say, is pretty standard when you're talking about
Mhm.
professional labor, right?
Right.
But it's
Mhm.
the materials that really is the cost driver, I guess.
Right. I mean, if you're adding on 3 cabinets, that sounds easy,
Right.
but okay, now our budget just increased by 5,000. Why is that? Well, the design had to shift and like just it's
Wow.
people just don't think that as they're, hey, this would be great to add, just stay on top of that or don't do it. But, when you're in the beginning, it is a little bit of a learning process. So
Yeah.
maybe add a buffer on your estimate too.
Right, right. So, would you say that so in terms of the selection of materials, right? There's a lot of different things. Do you think that it's reasonable, or do you think it's kind of unreasonable and like micromanaging if the investor wants to be a part of the decision-making process of the
Mhm.
specific materials that are used in the
For
book?
me, that's the fun part,
Okay, okay.
So, I mean, do what you love, and I love the design aspect. So if
Right,
nobody's living in there, I'd be like, hey, let's play with this. But a good GC is going to give you a range to say, here's your budget for countertops. These are the materials that would fall within that.
right.
So if I go and pick out this high end quartz that's way over that, then that's on me.
I see. Oh wow.
But when we give a scope of work, we give a budget, like here's your fixture budget. Like they can pick out their fixtures and this is what's built into your estimate. If you go over that, then you owe more.
Oh, I see. I see.
Mhm.
That's good. Wait, okay, wait a minute. So wait, when you say that there's like a fixture budget, right? So
Mhm.
wait, who sets that?
So the GC,
The
the
GC says,
GC,
here's the fixture budget,
mhm,
based on their estimate.
that's included in the estimate.
That's included.
And
Oh, I see. I see.
right. And if you want high end above that, then you have to pay extra.
You have to pay extra. I got you. Got
Right.
you. Got you. Okay.
Right. And then as far as like running the budget, yes, there should be weekly communication if there are problems with it.
Okay.
Um, Again, a great GC is going to stay within those main pieces. They're going to know electrician, they're going to know plumber. We do need to keep it in mind, though, that some supply costs are varying in this stage just because of distribution and all the shipping issues globally do affect different things. So we've seen 20% increase in some items. It's not over the whole build, but just every once in a while, there's a spike in something. So I think just be kind if they come back and say,
Right.
lumber cost is through the roof. And they can usually give you some options like, do you want to wait a couple of weeks or do you want to push forward? And that communication key is you don't want to wait until the end and then they're hitting you with all of these things that cost extra that they didn't tell you.
Right.
So I think the managing part is hopefully they do it on their own, but otherwise weekly you can have a checklist of things that you want to know.
Right. I like that. I like that. Now, even with the purchasing of the materials, right? Do you think that I've heard that these general contractors will sometimes even make money off of the materials, meaning you know, like they add in their like add in a little bit of a profit, I guess, to cover their time of picking up the materials and transporting the materials. Like they have to go to Home Depot and stuff like that.
I guess
Yeah, okay, okay.
I think that we include in our total
The
budget.
total
So we
budget.
never break it. Like if we're doing lumber cost
Uh,
and labor, we
uh,
don't usually break it into detail
uh,
unless somebody wants it.
gotcha.
But they are aware that we do a 20% on top of across the board. So we're upfront with this is the cost of
Oh, so 20%, like what do you call it? Markup. 20% markup.
20% across the board is the cost for using a professional to manage it. And that's that's probably standard. So just to keep that in mind.
Right. So, and when you say 20%, I mean, I'm just saying, how would that be calculated? You mean based on the labor, like the
Mhm.
estimated labor and the estimated material costs,
Right.
a 20% markup from there. I
Hmm.
see. Gotcha. Now,
Right.
um, I'm just thinking out loud though, right? Like, what if the investor says, "Hey, look, after we come up with our detailed estimated budget and everything, when you actually buy the materials, I want you to use my card to buy the materials. I'll pay you for the labor, but I want to go ahead and buy the materials myself." Or how about this? Put it this way: if the investor really wants to get involved, what if the investor is like, "Look, I will buy the materials and I will bring them to the job site." And then so the materials thing is kind of like on me, and then and then you just have to manage the materials and you just have to manage the labor, and or is that
Um, we have done, I mean, we have friends that have done jobs and, we bend over backwards to help. It
okay?
ends up being a little bit disastrous
Okay.
because they're not professionals. And we end up having to be a part of every purchase anyway. Um, and it throws the timeline off and it comes down to control. I think I'm saving money, but in actuality, they end up stressed out. They have spent a lot of time and then we do it anyway and don't get paid for it.
Right. Okay.
So I would say the way that we handle it is that there are deposits up front and that covers the materials.
Gotcha.
And then when we write out a scope of work, there are specific points in the build that they have to make more deposits. So it's not, hey, you've got to cover all of the material up front, but there might be a $10,000 deposit. And then after sheetrock, there's another $5,000 deposit. And that way it keeps the project rolling without having to depend on going back and forth about payment, or that the builder has to pay all of this up front on their own dime and then risk not getting paid later.
Okay.
And then there's a final payment.
I like that. A draw schedule, pretty
Yes,
much. A draw schedule,
exactly.
right? And I know that now that's an interesting point too, is that with the draw schedule, some investors are of the mindset regarding the draw schedule that never let the payment get ahead of the work. So always be it where you have the general contractor having to kind of invest their own money in getting stuff done, and then you reimburse them at different stages of the timeline. What are your thoughts about that?
I think if someone were to do that with us, there'd have to be something in it for us because that's a huge risk. You're asking us to put in $10,000 for your project. So are we an investor at that point? Are we getting a bit of the profit? And I mean, these are just serious questions. That's how we handle our business.
Right.
Because you're asking us to take risk,
Okay. Well,
if that
what
makes sense.
with the incremental of 5,000 though?
Mhm.
I guess my whole point is this: is that yeah, I mean, I guess you can see it. The contractor's taking a risk, but then I guess if you don't do that, like if you're paying the contractor up front, I mean deposits. I guess
Mhm.
even if it's like 5,000,
Well,
it's
Well, and it's not based on time. It's not based on a date. It's
true.
based on the project reaching that state.
That's right. That's right. That's
So that way you're still controlling the project.
true.
And it's not getting ahead of, like, you're not paying extra money and it's not ready for that stage.
I see. Gotcha. Oh, I see. Okay. So basically, the draw schedule, the
Is
timeline, you're kind of mapping it all out. You're putting it in
right.
different stages, and you're saying,
Mhm.
okay, we can pay this for this stage, this for this stage.
Right. And again, it's an ideal, like this is an ideal schedule.
Right.
Um, the way that we build our schedules is to start backwards. Like, what is your date that you want to be complete?
Mhm.
And then we work backwards from that, and that helps keep it a lot more timely. A lot of contractors will work forward, so they will schedule the next thing. They'll get it finished and they'll wait for that to finish and schedule the next thing. So there's these time gaps, and even a day or two of time gaps with vendors and subcontractors, that adds up.
Yeah.
So we build it backwards where we're like, oh, wait, we need to be finished. Therefore, these 5 things have to be completed for inspection. And then we can overlap our contractors. So we actually schedule them out 2 to 3 weeks. And because we're a smaller business, because again, this is back to that relationships. We have relationships with subcontractors from years and years. So they will show up for us as a small job. Whereas someone that just calls them and hires them one off, they're gonna bounce them. And even with builds, this happens too. So I say just be kind to your GC, because if they say the painter hasn't showed up for 3 days, they're probably really pissed about it. And so you don't have to chew them out. But that communication's good. It's frustrating because again, this is all things that are out of your control. So just to have a little bit of compassion for an overall timeline. Like overall, I get it. The plumbers didn't show up for a week. Are we still good to hit our major deadline?
I like that. This is good. Wow, Carey, this has been an excellent conversation.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I mean, so much. And I see that it's a lot. There's a lot to it, but I love being able to kind of talk through it because I have more of a clearer picture now talking with you, about this and everything.
Right. And where your easy buttons are, and like just be willing to pay for those easy buttons. And it's okay. It will really save you in the end, because it's gonna be hard no matter what.
Yes.
And if you can take the pressure off some of those intricate details and learn along the way, we really try to educate people that want to know as we go, because that makes everyone's job easier.
Yes, love that. Love that. Awesome. Carey, thank you so much for being on the show, and look forward to the next episode with you. I know we got several more episodes to come, and so I'm excited about continuing this series with you, Carey. So this is gonna
Thank
be
you.
All right. I'm gonna stop the recording but hang on, Carey, for the little show. All right.